everyone, it's Vice President Sarah Johnson here on this beautiful sunny day. I am out in a local central Illinois woodland, and not only is it sunny and warm, there are tons of spring ephemerals out. Here's a big and beautiful patch of allium, or wild ramps, wild leeks. And I love them because they are really beautiful with their leaf color. They have this bright red, brownish base to the leaf and beautiful thick green leaves that are catching all this sunlight today. And you can tell that's what they are because if you break off a leaf and you smell it, it should smell like garlic or onions. Now, it's important if you want to try to eat these that you find someone with some private property that has them on their property, because we don't want to take any live material from any of our natural areas or forest preserves unless we have permission. But you can cut them at the base. You can pull out the whole root and eat it just like you would with bunching onions. It's very, very pungent, but it tastes good. Plants I'm finding are the really, really adorable tiny seedlings of Impatiens or Jewelweed. So they get really tall, they like wet areas, they have either yellow or orange flowers that hummingbirds really seem to love. But these are just the tiny new leaves of these little seedlings. These are the leaves of Blue-Eyed Mary, Collinsia, I believe. And these will probably bloom late April, early May. They have these adorable blue and white flowers. But if you're seeing this all over the forest floor, it's a good chance if you come back in a month, you'll get to see a lot of blue and white Collinsia blooms. Here's some nice spring cress. It has 4-petaled flowers, which help tell you that it is a brassicaceous plant. And here's some of the basil leaves, very cute heart-shaped leaves, and really nice. Not as common, in my opinion, as some of the other spring blooming ephemerals. Another crowd favorite, Spring Beauties, one of the earliest blooming spring ephemerals. Claytonia virginica is their species name. I really love these because they have some diversity in the color of the striping in the flowers. So sometimes they'll be quite white, but other times they'll be really bright pink. And you can see these pink anthers with pink pollen. So sometimes you'll see bees coming up to these spring beauties covered in pink pollen, which is really, really cool. Okay, y'all, this is definitely one of my favorite spring wildflowers. This is a bellwort, flowering bellwort uvularia, and it is so dainty and delicate. I just love it. It has this beautiful yellow, kind of demure flower to it. The bluish green of the foliage is really nice. Definitely a favorite of mine. Man, this patch of Toothwort dentaria is really popping off. Foliage on this one can help you tell it apart from the cress. It has this really cool 5-leaved toothed structure, which is where it gets toothwort from. Really beautiful. Here next to my friend, uvularia. Love the color and texture of these leaves. You get this pink stem, really lacy green leaves, and the adorable little white pantaloons. foliage of a really cool forest herb. This is called waterleaf, and I'm sure you can picture why it's gotten that name. It has this really cool reflective metallic part on the leaves. They're also really fuzzy. And same with this. This will probably bloom a couple weeks, maybe a month. Here's wild ginger, Asarum canadense, and here's the bud of its flower, not quite open yet. Maybe got another week on these. Nice and fuzzy, very cute. Pretty sure these are the basal rosettes of one of my favorite Solidagos, Solidago flexicaulis. It is our lucky day today, guys. This is Trillium recurvatum, and it is the first trillium I have seen blooming yet this year. It's got this awesome red petal on the outside of the flower. Actually, they're not petals, they're probably bracts. And these dark anthers, mottled leaves, dark and light color, maybe to break up the shape of the leaf, so it doesn't look as attractive to herbivores. I don't know, that's what Indefensive Plants told me, so hopefully he's right. Really nice spring flower. Is May apple. Leaves on these aren't quite all the way unfurled yet. They're pretty fresh. You can see the bud of a new flower coming in here. These big white flowers dangle down, and then they create these tiny little green fruits, which is why they're called May apples. They kind of look like green apples. And fun fact, they are primarily dispersed by box turtles. So these green fruits look really attractive to them. Some say the fruits are edible, but you have to pick them at a very specific time. So I say, just don't eat them. Better be safe than sorry. So another thing you'll see leafed out this time of the year that maybe isn't as wonderful as our spring ephemerals are some of the invasive shrubs and species in our woodlands. Some examples are multiflora rose, which leaves out really early in comparison to a lot of our other native rubus species. And also you get a lot of invasive honeysuckles, which leaf out earlier than most of our forest understory shrubs. So this means that they're able to capitalize on a lot of resources that our native shrubs would otherwise have. So if you get the chance, once this is all over, I recommend trying to find a local park or forest preserve that you can volunteer with and do some invasive species pulling, herbiciding. It's hard to stop these plants because they spread so rapidly, but if we work together to do some volunteer work, we might be able to make a dent. Like that. Close, but we're not quite there yet. Virginia bluebells in bud, and I actually love this stage of flowering because you can see all the different color, dark blue, pink. So as the flowers age, as the buds age, they turn darker and more blue. Blue is actually pretty unusual to see in nature. You usually see different shades of purple, violet, but you don't see a lot of true blue, and this is pretty close to true blue. Okay, so I was wrong earlier. This all over the forest floor is, we think maybe some type of Phacelia. I cannot remember, because this is Collinsia, and clearly the leaves are different than that. But look, they're already starting to break bud, which is wild. This mild winter and a fairly warm spring is doing a lot for our spring wildflowers. So this is Collinsia, Blue-Eyed Mary. are the flower buds of our native Paw Paw tree, Asarum triloba. Love how velvety and brown and green they are. These are, I believe, primarily beetle and or fly pollinated when they open. They have a really unique flower. Almost looks a little bit like a wild ginger flower. So keep an eye out for these in the understory, where they usually are very numerous, so you guys can see. In the next couple weeks, they'll probably be open. Now here's a nice patch of Phlox divaricata. It's got a nice fuzzy stem, fuzzy leaves. You can see the buds coming in, but nothing quite open yet. Keep an eye out for these. Another great but subtle spring wildflower is the flower of blue cohosh. They have these really cool fruits later in the summer that are bright blue bulbs pretty much on top of this spike here. Love these tiny little flowers. I just looked over and got so excited about this view. Look at this patch of false rue. So adorable. Here we go, some Virginia bluebells finally flowering. Like that. I hope you guys had a good time exploring spring wildlife and wildflowers with us today, because it is beautiful and things are kind of weird in the world, but nature's always there. So make sure you get outside and see some of the really cool things that are coming out in your neck of the woods.